Hello everyone and welcome to Call Sign Charlie Models. It is time for another inbox review, and today we'll be doing the HK Models 132nd B-17F Flying Fortress. Now, last week we did the HK Models 132nd B-17G, the late production model, which also seemed to be a late production model from HK Toolings because the toolings looked like they were starting to fail with that kit. Some of the rivet detail and everything just was not as crisp as what it has been on other models. I've built a couple of these HK B-17s before, and the earlier ones I did, they did seem to have a lot crisper detail on the exterior, and we're going to get to see what the case is with this B-17F. This is a earlier production or release of the B-17s from HK, so we'll have to see how the toolings were back when this one was done. But going on by the top box art, we have some absolutely gorgeous box art on the front. We have Memphis Belle coming in for a landing, again with the Memphis Belle. I'm sorry, I like the story about Memphis Belle, but Jesus, do another B-17. There are so many other B-17 stories out there that you can do. So let's move on from the Memphis Belle. Let's do some other ones. I know for this build I am doing the Ye Old Pub build. I'm not going to have it in flight along with the BF-109. I'm going to have it on the ground after the mission. I'm going to do all the damage to it and everything, and I do have the decals and a couple other things for it as well. But going straight on the kit, we're going to take a look and see how this kit looks in comparison to the B-17G, which again we saw last week. If you're interested, you can go to my playlist and see that video, or I'll put the card for it right here. So for this kit, we have a total number of parts of 657 parts, and then we have a wingspan of 989 millimeters, which is almost 39 inches for the wingspan, and a total length of 709 millimeters, which is approximately 27 and 7/8 of an inch, so almost 28 inches right there for our total length and wingspan of this kit. Now going off to the side of the box, again we have, like all the other B-17s from them, we have some CAD work of the nose, the top turret right here, and some of the other sections of this model, and also a wall mount right here. And then we go off to the other side of the box right here, and we have two different paint schemes. We have the knockout dropper right here. Sorry about trying to fit this into the camera right here, of the 359th Bomber Squadron, 303rd Bomber Group, England, November of 1943. And then of course, again, we have the Memphis Belle of the 324th Bomber Squadron, 91st Bomber Group, England, May of 1943. Now, when I say that, don't take it as any disrespect to the Memphis Belle or the crew or anything like that. Truly, the story is amazing. What they did and being able to complete the 25 missions is absolutely amazing. Don't get me wrong on that point. What I'm kind of saying when I say again is the fact that every single manufacturer does a Memphis Belle. We have the Bloody 100th. We have so many other different aircraft that we can do, or that they can do, that they're beating a dead horse with the Memphis Belle. That's just my opinion. Let me know down in the comments what you think, if you're getting kind of tired of the Memphis Belle decals coming straight out of the box. So we're going to open up this box, which it is a very tight fit on the box. Again, trying to get this open. There we go. Then we open it up and we have absolutely jam-packed with all the plastic and everything. As you can see, filled to the brim with plastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the box, or all the plastic and everything, set off to the side, and then we can start going through the instructions, the decals, and all the plastic. So give me 1 second and I'll be right back. Alright, so starting off with the instructions, we have a very large booklet for our instructions with a repeat of the box art on the front, and then we also have a nice little history about the B-17F right here. We also have the standard legend of symbols that we will be using throughout the build right here. So we open it up, and again we're starting off with the flight deck, adding in the rudder pedals and also a control right here with our throttle quadrants and everything going on, and then we have our pilot seats right there going together, and then we have that going onto our flight deck along with some oxygen bottles on the underside, and then we have our sidewalls right here with more oxygen bottles. After that, we're getting the sidewalls put on, and then also our bulkheads with this first wing spar with some more oxygen bottles going in there. Looks like we do have the option, if you're going to put it on your wall mount, you do need to make some holes or open the holes for this or close the holes with these pieces right here. Alright, so after that we're adding in that bulkhead to our flight deck, and then we have some bombs to making 10 bombs for this kit. After that we're going to attach those bombs to our bomb racks, and then our bomb racks to the center spar for our bomb bay. And then we have some bomb racks for our sidewalls that we will be attaching right into the next step, and then attaching all of that along with our bomb bay roof right there, and another bulkhead for our radio operator section right there. And then we have another wing spark going in and a bunch of other radio equipment going in. And then we have our deck for our radio operator section, and then another bulkhead right here. We also have some more radio components to add to that as well. Alright, moving right along, we're adding in our front bulkhead right here that's going to house our instrument panel and also be the back bulkhead for our nose section. And then we're also adding the turret, the ring for our ball turret going on. Alright, so after that we have our some more windows and clear work to go on, and then we have our sliding frame for our window going right here. You do have the option of having the aft window open or closed, or the waist windows open or closed. Alright, so then after that we are working on our waist guns, getting our waist guns on, and then you can see right here, open port side window and open starboard side window. Somewhere around here. I think it'll be on the next page. But just getting our guns all together and assembled right there. Then after that we are getting the sub-assembly done of the cockpit and the bomb bay and our radio operator section. Getting that all attached into the fuselage with a couple other pieces for our waist section right there. After that we're putting on our tail section and then a floorboard for our waist gunners right there. After that we're working on the starboard side of the fuselage with our waist gunner section. Then we also have the door being able to be opened or closed with this one as well. Alright, so after that we do have some gun belts going in and also our gun right there. And then after that we are getting our fuselage halves together along with the tail gunner section right here. Then we're getting the tail end of the fuselage put on right there with the tail gun piece, along with our clear part for our tail gunner and the sight for our tail gunner as well. After that we're working on the top section, getting that all put together, and the top gun getting put on, and then we have some clear parts to go on right there. And then we have the option of having the aft gun, the aft upper gun I guess is what it would be called, in the extended or stowed position right here with this clear work going on top of it if you decide to go that route. Then after that we are getting this top clamshell put onto the fuselage, where you're going to cover up a lot of the work that you've done with this kit. This part does cause a little bit of a fit issue, so definitely they molded it so you could take it off and on, but they didn't mold it so you could have a good fit. Alright, and then after that we have some other electronics components going on to the front end, along with the fire bottle right here. Then another piece, which I'm not sure what that is going on to right here. Alright, so up next we are starting to work on our nose section right here, getting some clear parts put into the sidewalls of that. And then we do have a few holes to drill on our deck right here. After that, we're working on our nose guns, getting those all done with that, and then adding in our navigator table, our bombardier chair, and a couple other pieces along with our guns, and also our ammo belts right there. Alright, so up next we have our windows. We do have a couple different options for our nose windows right here. As you can see, we have this one that has the one center gun, and then we have this one that has the two guns coming out of the nose glass right there. Then we're also adding a couple antenna to that as well. Up next, we're working on our top turret, getting that all done. It looks like it's going to be very nicely detailed as well. And then we're moving right along and working on our tailplane. We got our horizontal stabilizers and elevators right there, along with our rudder going on. And then after that, we're working on our bomb turret, and then we're getting our nose section attached to the fuselage right here. Alright, and then after that, we have our bomb bay doors. You do have the option. They do have a one-piece bomb bay right here, having it closed, so you can have that closed off depending on how you're going to do it. If you're going to have it up on the wall, you're going to need to have the bomb bay doors open. Alright, so moving right along, we're starting to work on our wings with our landing gear sections going on to our lower wing along with the prop hubs right there. And then we are starting to work on our engines. Engines look like they're going to be fairly decent detail, but they're not really all that detailed. After that, we're getting our wings put on or put together right there, and then getting our engines all set up for attachment. Alright, then after that, we are working on our superchargers, getting our superchargers attached right here, and then also doing our landing gear, our wheels. We do have the option of having the landing gear in the up or down position. They do have separate pieces for depending on what side you want to do. Alright, then we're getting all of that attached to our wings, and then we're just going to repeat for the other wing right here. Alright, same thing, repeat, or nope. We're going to be adding our flaps and slats, or flaps and ailerons right there, and then again repeating on everything. After that, we are attaching our wings, which the wings attachment for this kit are very nice. They are a slot. They don't really require filler when you put them in, so you can remove them for transport right there. Alright, we're also adding in our tail gun and our top turret guns as well, and also our waist guns also. Alright, and then we have a picture of the completed model right there. Alright, up next we're showing you how, if you're going to do the wall mount, shows you how to do the wall mount, how to attach it and do all that stuff right there. This is definitely a way to do it if you want to save space. And then we have our parts call out. Parts are nicely numbered and easy legible right there. Then we have our decals. We also do have a few resin parts with this kit with our gun belts right here. So very nice addition to this kit, along with some photo etch for our seat belts and the grill right here. Then we have our decals going on, and then we have our color call outs. Again, this is the Memphis Belle from the 324th Bomber Squadron, 91st Bomber Group, Bassingbourn, UK, 1943 of May. Right here it shows you all the decals going on there. And then we have the other side profile and bottom profile of this one right here. And then going on to the next one, we have the 359th Bomber Squadron, 303rd Bomber Group, Molesworth, UK, 1943, knockout dropper right here. Again, very nice paint schemes on the sides, and then also for the bottom as well. And that does it for our instructions. We do have our color callouts using AK Interactive, Goons, Mr. Hobby, and Tamiya for our color callouts. Alright, also included in this kit is a very nice poster of the box art right here. As you can see, put a frame around this and you can hang this on your wall, and this will look absolutely gorgeous next to your model. Alright, so up first we have our decal sheet with our aircraft kill markings right here. Then we have another one with some more decals for Virginia, Pete Repeat, Sally, and our bomb missions and our aircraft kill markings as well. Alright, then up next we have our decals with our main decals going on. Again, pretty nice decals. They do feel a little bit thick, especially on the national insignia. They do feel a little bit thick, and the lettering also feels a little bit thick as well with those. So these are also printed by Cartograph, which is odd for them to feel that thick with them being from Cartograph. So they, in theory, should go down pretty well with being from Cartograph, but we'll have to see how these do. Alright, and then up next we have our other decal sheet with, again, our national insignia. That's feeling pretty thick, but they feel okay. We also have our mission markings and our aircraft kill tallies. Now on this decal, the emblem is broken up, so I don't know how they did it on the other one where they were able to have that symbol as a full piece, but then these are required to be broken up. So we'll have to see about that. But again, nicely done on the decals. They all seem to be in a nice color on that. So we'll have to see how these go down. Well, actually, I'm going to be using the Ye Olde Pub decals, so I will not be using these. Alright, so up first we have a bulkhead right here. This is our nose bulkhead. That's going to be the back end of our nose section right here. Again, some nice detail up here molded, and we have some nice wire detail and some box detail that's going to be adding in a bunch of other boxes that go in here, and you're also going to have a bunch of other detail right in front of it, so you're really barely going to be able to see this at all unless you really light up the nose section. That's really the only way that you're going to be able to see any of this. Then we have the other bulkhead right here. Again, not much detail to it, a little bit of molded detail right here, but from what I can see so far, okay, I'm not going to speak too early on this. We do have a good amount of ejector pin marks on this one, as you can see. And this one, this side, you're not going to see at all right here, so no worries on that one. Okay, and up next we have a couple more pieces for our nose section. This is our mounting bracket for our nose gun right here in the clear part. Again, some very nice molded support railings right here, and then a nice shape to it. I'm not seeing any ejector pins or anything like that. I spoke too early. So there are a couple ejector pin marks on the back end here, but again, I'm not sure on how well you will be able to see those. They also do seem like they would be fairly easy to clean up one, so not much issues with that one. And then we have our guns right here. Again, our guns, we do have some nice body detail to our guns, as you can see. And then the barrels are drilled out on the tip, so that's very nice. And actually the detail on these are actually pretty nice. Compared to the B-17G, the late production, those definitely looked a lot worse than these. So definitely, I think with the B-17G late production, I think the toolings, the molds were actually starting to go bad with that kit. So, because the detail on this is looking a lot better already. Okay, and then we have just a couple round plates right here. I'm not sure what these are for. Not much detail to them. Actually, no detail to them. Except for the back side, they have a little locator tab right here. So we'll have to see what these are used for. Alright, and then moving on to our nose section. Alright, so our nose section, from what I can tell, the detail on it does look a little bit better. Again, it goes a little bit soft. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus. The detail does go a little bit soft around the edges right here, so definitely going to need to re-rivet that as well. So, and also we do have a little bit of a raised feel to it, like the rivets didn't get cleaned up. So I'm guessing, I don't know what was going on with the tooling at HK when they did these two models, but this one is feeling pretty rough. It will get you there. It will just take a light sand to clean it up. But again, that's the only issue I'm really seeing with that. Then on the other side, alright, so we do have a lot of ejector pin marks right through there, as you can see. Definitely going to take some filling. The way I'm going to take care of it is I'm going to get some very thin styrene. I'm going to cut those to shape, and I'm going to just glue those styrene squares in there to cover up those, instead of having to try to fill and sand and all that with those, because that, with all that framing going around there, is going to be an absolute nightmare. Alright, so up next we have the sprue with our bombs and our guns right here. We get 5 of these sprues. The bombs, not much detail to them. The bomb fins do seem, they're a little bit thick, but really you're not going to be able to see these once they're in the bomb bay. Our guns, again, for this sprue, they do look really soft. Not much detail to them on the barrels, and then the barrels are drilled out. That is the nice touch to that. And our bomb fins, again, really nicely molded on that piece. And we do get 5 of these sprues as well. Alright, so up next we have, looks like some fire bottles right here. Our control yokes right there. And then our seats, some of our seats and our radio equipment right there. Just going on. All the detail on here seems okay. It's nothing like, it's not wingnut wing-esque, but it is good enough. For this kit. We do have the front radar or front antenna right here. That is in one piece. We just have a little seam line to go take care of down the middle of that. And then for our tail section, again, the rivet detail and panel line detail, it's there. It looks good, but it's just rough. You can even see right here where some of the raised edges are on the rivets, which I just don't get how that is. It's going to take cleanup, and honestly you're going to have to re-rivet this stuff right here on this one, because you can hear my finger going over those rivets right there. That's how bad they are on this part of the kit. Now, like right dead face onto it, it looks good, but when you start going around the curves, that's when we start to have issues with these rivets and everything on this sprue right here. Alright, moving on to our next one, we have an ammo can right here, some radio equipment, and some other pieces. This is our window frames, or our slides for our waist windows right there, and then we have some more ammo chute or ammo cans, the bicycle seat for our tail gunner right here, and then some other pieces, and then our deck for our nose section right here. No detail to that, but we're going to be adding a bunch of other pieces to that. We have the tail gun right here, and then our control yokes. Again, not much detail. The detail on here looks okay, painted up. I'm pretty sure I have the Quinta Studios 3D printed decals for all the interior sets for this. Alright, then up next we have, looks like some chair detail right there. We have the ammo bags, the can or the shell bags for our overhead turret, and then we have the beginnings of our overhead turret right here, the framing for that, and we're going to have glass parts that go all over that to really liven that up. But as you can see, all the other parts look okay. Just okay. We do have a couple of ejector pin marks on these pieces right here, and there is detail, so I'm assuming that you're going to see this side right here. And then we do have a couple ejector pin marks on the inside of the top turret, but I'm pretty sure that you will not be able to see those at all. Alright, so we also have, real quick, this little photo etch fret right here for our seat belts, and also a couple vents that go on the engines right here. They all look very nice and pretty thin for the photo etch. Again, I'm not a fan of photo etch seat belts, but they are there. And the grills do look very nice as well. They are drilled hollow through so you can see them, as you can see my finger through the end of those. Alright, moving on to our next sprue, we have, this is for probably the G variant right here, but we have another tail section right here, as you can see, and then the floorboard right here for our tail gunner, our aft wheel section right here, then some more guns and radio, and then we have the nose section for the G model right here. As you can see, the detail on this, the rivet detail feels a little bit smoother on this, but not much smoother, and it also does go a little bit soft on the underside as well. Then we have some more bulkheads and the chin turret for our B-17G that we will not be using for this kit. We also have the mount for our ball turret, and a couple other pieces and a couple bulkheads. And again, we have all those ejector pin marks on there. And then our bomb bay right here, really not going to be able to see any of that. And then we have again another bulkhead with more ejector pin marks on that. And then we flip it over to the other side for our radio operators floor right here. No issues with that. It's nice and smooth, and a couple other molded details into that. And then this right here for our bomb bay bulkhead, again, no ejector pin marks, some nice detail on that. Then we have the floor for our cockpit or our nose section right here for the G model. We won't be using that for this kit. And then another bulkhead for our bomb bay, which again has no ejector pin marks. We also have our oxygen bottles right there and a couple other pieces as well. Alright, so up next we have another sprue. This is our landing gear section right here. Some nice molded in cable detail in that. And then we have our landing gear struts right there. This is for the up position. Some nice bolt detail included right there. As you can see, all the other parts going on. There we have our other landing gear. We also have some cabling for our, or hosing for our landing gear as well to be added. We have our cowl flaps right here. We'll flip it over here in a second to see the other side of those. And then we have the other bulkhead for our landing gear section as well. Now we flip it over to the other side. We have our superchargers, which actually do look very nice, and they're going to have another piece that goes in there to liven that up. I'm going to have to do a side-by-side comparison of this and the Edward one to see which one, or if the Edward ones are even needed on that. So we'll have to see here when I start this build when we do that. Alright, up next we have another sprue, which is pretty much the same sprue, but it's labeled differently. I'm not sure if there's a different part on it. Does not look like there's a different part. It just must be for one for each side on that. Alright, so up next we have a couple pieces. This is for the G that we won't be using. Then we have our internal bomb rack right here for our sidewall. The bomb rack actually does look pretty nice, but you will also not be able to see this because there'll be bombs on top of it. So there is a little bit of detail on the sidewalls right here. And then for our other piece, for our rudders right here, those do look very nice for detail on that. Then we have the other bomb rack right here and a couple other pieces. And then we have the ammo feed chutes right here that we're going to replace with the resin ones that come with the kit, as you can see. And then we have the floor for our waist section right here. Alright, and on this sprue we just have the wall mount right here. Not much to it, but as you can see, it is a nice and beefy chunk of plastic, so it'll definitely be able to hold the weight of the kit. And then up next we have the screw and the wall mount for it, and then we have the top fuselage section right here, which the rivet detail and everything on this one is absolutely amazing. Nice and smooth, no issues with any of this. And going around the sides, the rivet detail does seem to maintain the depth and consistency of it, so that is nice on that. And then on the reverse side of it, we do have a good amount of ejector pin marks, much like the other the B-17G that we did. It's the same tooling, just. Alright, so up next we have our ailerons. We have the top side right here, not much to it, with our trim tab right here, and then we have some framing detail to go on right there. And then the underside of this one, same thing, not much detail to it, just a little bit of framing detail. And we get a total of 4 of these sprues, so 2 of each, top and bottom. Alright, so up next we have our instrument panel right here. Not much to it. You're going to have a decal sheet, I believe, that goes on the back side of this. And then a couple other detail pieces. This is our framing for the other option of the nose gun on that. And then this piece, I believe that is the navigator desk right there. After that, we have a couple more mounts for our guns right there. And then another ammo can. And then a piece for our Astrodome right here. Then we have another option for our upper turret right here depending on which variant you're doing on that. And then we have our resin ammo feed chutes right here, which are just basic copies of the plastic ones. I'm not seeing much of a difference between the resin ones and the plastic ones right here. Actually, the plastic ones might be a little bit better because they are cleaner. You can see some of this looks a little rough on the casting of this. So just because it's resin doesn't mean it's better on that. So yeah, so we might be using the plastic ones instead on this kit. Up next we have our clear parts. This looks like it's for one of our upper turrets right here. Again, crystal clear on the clear parts. No issues with these, much like the B-17G. The clear parts were actually probably the best parts of the entire kit. Alright, now we have our big sprue of clear parts. We have our ball turret right here. Again, nice and clear on those, and then frosted on the areas that you're going to be painting. And then we have all the other clear parts, like our waist gun windows right here, our cockpit windows, and then some of the other top clear parts right there. Again, nice and crystal clear on all these right there. So you can see this. If I can get you back on camera, pulled you off too far off. Alright, so our nose clear piece, absolutely crystal clear. We have another large sprue with our clear parts that's going to have another clear nose for our different gun options on this. Alright, and then up next we have another sprue with our clear parts, nicely protected on this piece of cardboard right here. Let me cut off the tape here so you can actually see, because the white is not allowing you to see the clear parts. Alright, so going on by the first one right here, you can see, and it's also protected by this plastic piece that's going over it right here, but you can see the clear parts. Again, the best parts of the whole kit, I would say, are the clear parts right here. Then we have this one right here, again, with our different nose shapes right there. That one, and then we have that one, and then we have the overhead glass, our front glass for our nose section, a couple other pieces right through there. So again, very nicely done on the clear parts. In my opinion, the best parts of the whole kit so far. Alright, so now we have our door right here. Again, not much detail, a little bit of rivet detail on there. Then on the reverse side, no issues, no ejector pin marks or anything like that. So definitely going to have this door open to show off the inside right there. And then next we have our ailerons right, or flaps right here. No detail on this side, and then on the other side we have a little bit of frame detail, but we do have a lot of ejector pin marks on this. So your options are fill the ejector pin marks right here, have the flaps up, or use the Edward flap replacement set, which is a very large photo etch sheet. Does take a lot of bending and folding and rolling of the photo etch as well. Alright, so up next we have our engine sprues, and we get 4 of these sprues right here. We have more guns with very nice gun detail on that. Then we have the starts of our engines, our propeller blades right there, and then we also have our engine cowls. Again, the engine cowls do feel a little bit thick, so definitely going to need to trim those down to get them to the right thickness. And then on the reverse side, alright, so we have our wheels. The wheels do not look good in my opinion. Definitely going to need some replacements on those. And then the engines also very lackluster on detail for the engines on that. So again, we have the pieces that are going to be going into the superchargers right there, and then some more oxygen tanks right there, and some more detail for our engines. So you're going to be adding a lot of other parts to the engines to try to detail them up, but again, they're just not going to be very highly detailed on the engines, and you can see a good amount of it through this engine cowling right here. Alright, now we have another sprue. We have the sidewalls for our cockpit right here. You can see some nice hosing detail and control panel detail molded into that, along with our oxygen tank holders right here and some more molded in detail. We also have the other end of our instrument panel going on right there. Then we have the tail wheel and then a few electronics components going on, and then the back end of our nose section. Again, very nice detail included in this one. Not sure which one we're going to use, whether this one or the other one, which one of these were meant for the F and the other one was meant for the G possibly. We'll have to see. Then we also have the other flight deck right here. Again, not much detail to it, but you're going to be adding a bunch of other parts to that. Our tail wheel and our wing spars right here, which are very thick and beefy and definitely going to be able to hold the weight of the wings right there. Alright, and then after that we have our Bombay pieces right here, ammo cans, some other detail pieces going on, radios and all that. Another bulkhead for our radio operator section right there, as you can see, and then the front loading door right here, and then the Bombay doors. Bombay doors, the rivets do feel okay, or actually they look okay, but they do feel rough. So again, gonna want to take a light sander over those to take care and make sure those rivets are nice and smooth. And then for the other side, alright, so on the Bombay doors we do have a lot of rivets, or not rivets, but ejector pin marks on the inside of there. So definitely going to need to clean those up if you are going to have the Bombay doors open. And then for our bomb racks right here, as you can see, more ejector pin marks on that. Bomb racks other than that do look okay, but again, those ejector pin marks, they do feel fairly shallow, so they should be fairly easy to sand out. But yeah, you're going to have to deal with all of those. And then all the other detail on here. Not sure about this piece. You might be able to see a good amount of this because you can see all those ejector pin marks on that. And then these right here are for your aft piece, the tail section. Ejector pin marks, but again, you're not going to be able to see that section. And then for our loading door right here, again, a couple of ejector pin marks, but very shallow and easy to take care of. Alright, so up next we have our tailplane, our horizontal stabilizers and elevators. And as you can see, the rivet detail on this looks absolutely amazing, and it is nice and smooth. There's no issues with these rivet detail at all. This is actually really, really nice. We do have a little bit of a, looks like some mold ejection agent right there to clean up, but everything else on here does look very nice. And the rivet detail and panel line, if the rest of the kit looked like this, it would be absolutely top notch. And then we have our elevators, again with a little bit of frame detail right there. Not much going on in that because this was a fabric section right here, as you can see on all those. And we get two of these sprues. Alright, so now we're looking at our wings, and we get two sets of these wings. These wings are absolutely massive, as you can see right here. They are a good, where'd my tape measure go? Each wing is 18 inches by itself, right? So again, very nice on the detail on this. The rivet detail all feels very nice. We do have a little bit of a bump right along here with the rivets that aren't fully clean, and some of the rivets look a little bit deeper than the others, but for the most part the detail on this does look very nice. We do have a couple of ejector pin nubs right in here to clean up, as you can see right there, but the rest of the rivet detail absolutely gorgeous on that. Looks very nice. Just take a light sander, quick sand over it, and you'll knock down all the little bumps and everything that are on there. But again, very, very nice for that. And then we have the underside of our wing right here. Again, absolutely gorgeous rivet detail all the way through. And then this one also, there is a little bit of a raise, like rivet part right here, just for where the rivets aren't very clean. But again, very nicely done on all that, and all of our bumps and everything going on right there. Alright, so now moving on to the fuselage, and as you can see, again, just this one fuselage part is massive. Zoomed out pretty much all the way, and this fuselage have, not including the tail stinger and the nose section right here, is 22.5 inches long. All right, so it is going to be a very large model. Now for the detail for it, it does look like the rivets are pretty nice on here. They do go very soft to non-existent right here around the bend. So that is definitely a huge issue with this kit. Actually, okay, now that I hit the light, you can see them, but they are like non-existent. Definitely gonna need to go in there with a riveter and re-hit that up with the your riveters. But everything else, like on the main side, looks very nice. And the other issue is these staggered windows right here, where they tried to fill them in. Let me get you zoomed in more. All right, so you can see where they have the window kind of filled in, and it's not a clean join right here. So definitely gonna need to go in, fill this in, and then fill it in, sand it, and then re-rivet all that just to get that smooth look to it. And then the door and everything else looks pretty nice. As you can see, the rudder or the tailplane right here, again, pretty nice. On the flat detail looks very nice. It's when it starts going around the bends and curves, that's where we start to lose a lot of the detail on here. Including up in here, we do lose all of our rivet detail right along here. I'm rubbing my finger across it and I can feel the bumps for the rivets. So definitely going to need to take care of all of that. Alright, and then now we have the other side of the fuselage, and it's the same deal with the rivet detail going soft around the bottom right here, and then everything else with the rivet detail looks the same. We do not have the staggered window issue on this side, but also the rivets just feel rough. They feel like if you actually do your riveting and you right after you do your rivet and you rub your finger over it, you can feel the little raised edges from the rivets. That's how it feels. It feels like somebody went in there and re-riveted everything but didn't do the cleanup from it. So definitely from the issue of this being a old tooling or old, yeah, the molds are starting to go bad. That is why this is having this issue right here, because the first time I built one of these B-17s was probably back in 2014, so 11 years ago, and the moldings and the toolings and everything were absolutely gorgeous all the way around. I did not have any of these issues with any of these rivets or anything. So definitely the toolings are starting to get old. I bought these kits, the B-17G and the F, back a few years ago, 2 to 3 years ago. So definitely in that 8 to 9 year span, I guess they were just constantly reusing the same toolings and or same molds, and they never replaced them because these feel like garbage compared to the other ones. Also, something I didn't hit up on the other one was the inside of this, and we do have some issues with some ejector pin marks on the inside. Really the only area that is going to be a concern is the waist section right here, because you will be able to see a good amount of this, especially if you're going to leave this window wide open. So this section right here is really the only area that I would be worried about ejector pin marks. All of these definitely not going to be able to see because it's inside unless you pull off the top piece right here. But if you leave that on, you are not going to be able to see any of these ejector pin marks because you're going to have detail all around there anyways. And then the front cockpit section, you're going to have the sidewalls that go on top of that. So no worries with that section right there. Alright, so that's everything for the HK models 132nd B-17F Flying Fortress. And this kit, it still looks pretty good. Now, does it look as good as what it did 10, 11 years ago when it first came out? No. But sadly, this is the only 132nd B-17 game in town, minus the different variants from HK. But HK is the only one, as far as I know, that have a 132nd B-17. It's not like the Lancaster that has the HK models and the Border models Lancaster. Hopefully Border models will one day release a B-17. Fingers crossed for that. But as for now, with this kit, it does look pretty good. It is going to take a little bit of work to clean up all the rivet mess that is on the kit, and that's just going to take a light sand over everything to clean that up. Shouldn't take you very long to do all of that. And then you do have some re-riveting that you need to do along the underside. Now that might take a little bit. As for the interior detail looks okay. Definitely, if you're going to have it like with me doing the ye old pub, where I'm going to have the battle damage and parts of it ripped apart and everything, definitely going to need to do the interior with the Quinta Studios interior for that. So that and the wheels really are the main pieces that need aftermarket, and also the flaps. The flaps and the flap wells just look absolutely garbage in my opinion. Definitely going to need to replace those because of all the ejector pin marks and everything that's in there, and the lack of framing detail that's in there. I mean, there's a little bit of framing detail on there, but it's just, it doesn't look good in my opinion. So definitely going to replace it with the Edward flap set for that. But I think the best part of this entire kit are the clear parts. That's really the only positive I have to say about this entire kit were the clear parts. The engines look garbage, the wheels look garbage, the detail is starting to fade because of the age of the toolings. They need to replace the toolings or the molds for the kit, not the toolings but the molds. So yeah, it does need to come a long way to get back to the place it was. And also with how things have changed and progressed over the past 10 years, it needs to be revamped. And hopefully Border Models will step up and do the game. And hopefully they do it in 1/32nd scale. I am one of those that I absolutely hate when they do aircraft in 1/35th scale, minus helicopters. My reason being is aircraft, you're not going to see a B-17 alongside a Sherman. You're not going to see a Heinkel 111 alongside a Tiger tank unless it's crashed. That's the only way that you're going to see those. So the whole matching scales for dioramas just, to me, doesn't make sense, because if it's on an airfield, you're not going to see the Sherman. You might see a cargo truck, maybe, but everything else is going to be pertinent to the airfield. So the tow tractors, everything else is going to be pertinent to the airfield. You're not going to see a tow tractor out with a Sherman tank, and vice versa. So if you're going to do it in 1/32nd scale, and then release the equipment in 1/32nd scale for it. But that's the end of my rant. Let me know in the comments what you think of, what side do you side on with 1/32nd or 1/35th scale aircraft. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope if you're on the fence about buying this kit, I hope this video helped you make your decision. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, have a great day, stay frosty, and happy modeling.